I bother Tokyo. Excuse me. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes. Hopefully, I can see you on here. I'm on Be Live. I'm on Instagram. We are up and live. A few minutes late. I was trying to take a breather. My day has just gone from one thing to the next. And I want to talk tonight. I am Dr. Torri J. I'm the founder and CEO of the Fatherless Generation Foundation. And tonight we're going to talk about fatherlessness, gender identity, and gender confusion. And we're going to talk about this for the whole month of March. Are we in March? Yeah, month of March. I've been doing like series more than anything, and that's made it a little easier. What are you playing? My husband's giving me some background music to my Insta.
Jaffa Radio.
You just gonna play anything. You don't have no symbolism. Doesn't even go along with what I'm talking about.
Play something that goes along
Oh
with what
Jesus.
what
Okay.
you're gonna talk about
This
tonight
is
if you
this.
want.
No, I don't even. I need to review that before you hit a button. See, this is what happens when.
Ain't get no more.
Sir. Okay. No. Mm-mm. Once again, tonight we're going to get into fatherlessness and gender identity and gender confusion, how they go together, how they don't go together. I am going to give some precursors before I get started because I know some people are ready. Hey, Nydia, we missed you last week, girlfriend. I hope you saw the conversation. It was actually pretty good, but we definitely missed you. And Shay was like, she was missing her girls last week. So I'm just telling you, you left Shay out there. Shay was like, I'm by myself. So we did miss you. Um, as we talk tonight, please share the video if you know someone who needs to hear this. And if you are listening to this in replay, what I want you to do is type replay in the comment section. There is some information that we're gonna scratch the surface of this tonight. Um, yeah, we're just gonna scratch the surface. This is a really deep conversation. I know this conversation is something that we've kind of talked about here and there. We've talked about effeminate men, masculine women, and how we get to that point. But we haven't really discussed who we are when we're walking in those types of roles and those gender roles within our lives. Um, okay, I got you. I was just watching now, and I'll go back. Okay, got you. But yeah, so we've gotten into those, but now we want to dig deeper into how those manifest in our lives and how they actually have caused a bit of a stir and a bit of a conversation that we're experiencing on a day-to-day basis, especially with this generation. This generation is having conversations about fluidity and gender identity and I'm a boy and not a girl and all of these different conversations. I am not here to um, put everybody into a box or into a group. I am speaking to a particular group of people. You will know who you are when I'm talking and when I'm sharing what I'm sharing. I will speak biblically and I will speak from different studies and psychological studies that I've looked at and really looked at the different research and how this is playing out. I think we try to negate the idea that fatherlessness is having an impact on the LGBTQIA community. We try to ignore that aspect of it, and I think we're doing a disservice to everyone when we do that. Um, and that's where I'm coming from. We've got to use everything in order to have this conversation. I know some people will want to talk about particular people. That's on you. I'm not really going to get into that tonight. But what I am going to do is, as I'm talking about fatherlessness and the impact it's having on our gender development and gender identity and gender confusion, I will be citing a particular person that I hope to one day have on our Facebook Lives or podcast. Her name is Jackie Hill Perry. I feel like she has a very sound perspective. Hi, little Carm. Carm, I guess that's what that is. Do me a favor and put your government name in the Instagram post here. I think she has a really solid, well thought out understanding. You can turn it down, but you can turn it off. It was just for my introduction.
I'm sorry, I didn't
It's,
know.
it's okay. I'm gonna teach him how to DJ this thing, Nydia, real soon. Um, but this conversation is not about homosexuality, yay or nay. No, we're not going to get into all of that per se tonight.
Oh, I'm supposed to be telling you that.
Off.
I'm getting there. I'm sorry. Man, you are
You
wrong.
busy. He busy. He trying to talk to Jason. He's over here. She said, Diddy said, I had an army retirement ceremony to attend and was on the road. Now, I told them that I have been watching you on social media and that she's in the military and she is all of that and then some. So I definitely said that in my, my conversation last week, Nydia. So good to know that you were at a retirement ceremony and glad to have you back. So, I can't see everyone on here like Vark, so I can't say what up, Jason. I can't say what up to whoever. But if you chime in and you say hey to me, I can say hey to you, but I can't see you in that regard just because I'm on Be Live. That's the Nydia. That's how I've been able to avoid the craziness of my computer and being on time. I just started using Be Live and was like, that's how we're gonna work this thing. And we're not gonna worry about it. So let's get into this. Let's get into this. Like I said, tonight I'm going to really reference a lot of Jackie Hill Perry's information. And I want to start out with how I ended up dealing with this topic in the first place. So when I was looking at something and I can't remember what it was, but as I was looking at it, I found myself on Jackie Hill Perry's website. She has a book called what's the name of this book? The name of this book is Gay Girl, Good God. And so her story is, at the beginning of her bio, you see, I used to be a lesbian. But what jumped out at me more than anything was the second line on her bio. It says, Jackie grew up fatherless and experienced gender confusion. And when I read that, I began to go, what? Okay. And it just kept simmering with me and it just kept stirring with me. And from that moment, hey, Vera Anthony, from that moment, I began to do research and I began to look up different research and studies and what it said about fatherlessness and gender identity. Once again, I know that this is a topic that is touchy for some of you. I am not clumping everyone into a box. Some of you will try to say, well, I had a father and I've had homosexual thoughts and blah, 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 all of this other stuff. Okay, Glenn, that's not what we're talking about tonight, but okay. Um, it's just not. Um, Nitty said, get it together, Bart. Gosh. Um, oh, I get it, Glenn, but that's for Thursday. And that's not what we do every night on this page. But let me tell you, let me lead you someplace, Glenn. If you are on Dad Talk today, they are excellent at that. And I believe um, either at 8 or 9 o'clock, you're going to have Melissa Isaac on there who will be talking about alienation and all of those things. So I think that would be a good place for you to go. Tonight, we are specifically healing and working with fatherlessness and fatherless individuals who are dealing with some challenges in their lives. So that's what I'm all about tonight. So I appreciate you chiming in and trust me when I say we are all into that space and shared parenting. But that's not where we are tonight. So I had to address that over here, Instagram. Just wanted to let you know. But when we're dealing with fatherlessness, or even homosexuality, gender fluidity, gender identity, and gender confusion, one of the places I see society try to avoid is the aspect of fatherlessness and how it may impact how a child feels about their identity. Does it cause confusion? And when I read that bio on Jackie Hill Perry's page, and I'm talking about the second line says, I grew up fatherless and I experienced gender confusion. Well, the more I looked at who she was and how she got into this lifestyle, this young lady talks about from the time she was 4 or 5, she began feeling a certain type of way. She felt like she wanted to be a boy, and so she then projected masculinity. She talks about everything from getting out of the shower. Um, and dressing like a bull, like wrapping the towel around her waist versus around her top, her chest. And you begin to ask questions like, and she's answering all of these questions. And it reminded me of a young man that I had in one of my very first peer groups back probably 8, 9 years ago now. And I need you guys to understand that kids who are growing up in fatherless homes, especially boys, are being impacted by this because you've got to recognize that when a girl is raised by her mother, she tends to take on the traits of her mother, which is natural, right? Looks natural. But when a boy is raised by his mother, he takes on the gender role and traits of his mother. So he becomes effeminate. And I remember this young man, he was 11 years old. And I might have told this story before, but I want to tell it in a little more detail than I think I've told it on here because I've been waiting for this particular conversation to have the full conversation. Um, 2 points. Okay, let me see what this says. Just this says here before I get into the story. I have an 11-year-old daughter in public school. Our schools allow boys to pretend to be girls, vice versa. I don't believe the school should determine when my daughter partially clothed body is first seen by the opposite sex. It should be her choice. Second, she is a great athlete and competing in sports. Her chances of being recruited for a college and scholarship are eliminated if a male competes as a female. Now, this is an interesting subject. We're going to get into that. Maybe not tonight. We'll see how far this goes. And we'll go there. But let's get into this story that I want to tell you. So I remember the young man, and he was 11 years old. And there were times when we'd be in class, and he would just be like, honey child, and he'd be popping and he'd do all of that stuff. And I'm thinking, he is, number one, he's gay, and he's over the top with it. Nonetheless, that's who he was. And so I don't remember anyone in class ever making fun of him. It was a mental note that I made. I thought nothing of it. But I remember times when girls would come in because the particular Boys and Girls Club that this group was at, um, it had a lot of diversity, and some of the girls were well shaped. They were Hispanic or black or and they had some body. And the same little boy would be like, and I'm thinking, I thought I saw him popping and do it, and honey child, he was doing all that. So it was confusing to me. And one of the things that we have to do, one of the sessions we have in our Beyond Fatherless peer groups is there's a session where you have to write a letter to your father. And that can be a very emotional session for some. Some child, they write down F you and keep it moving. Others write poetry. Why did you leave? I still have a lot of those letters and I tend to collect them. Um, it just depends, but it was him and two other little girls who just could not go back into the Boys and Girls Club and play after this particular letter. Because, when you get a Boys and Girls Club, my group can be the serious group and they may have study or hall or whatever, but most of the time they're playing, right? They couldn't go back in and play. And I remember one little girl was just like, she was crying and she was just kind of upset her dad wasn't present. And then you had this young man, 11 years old, okay, walking into manhood. 12 is manhood, part of the actual buildings that they had. And he was screaming at the top of his lungs. I mean, screaming. And he was like, why is it that my dad can't be in my life? Why is it that he can't be in my life? And he was saying, Knoxville, Tennessee isn't that far from Atlanta. And he was like, and the more he's not in my life, the more I'm acting like my mother and my grandmother, because that's what I'm being raised around. What did he just say? And that's what I did. And in the midst of me doing that, I literally turned my body away from him because I did not want him to see my face. Because as I told you, I had already labeled the little boy as gay. And I was just like, okay, he's gay. I thought it was funny how he was just way, like when I tell you way over the top with it at 11, it was just way over the top. So I was like, okay, he's gay and he's confident and he's good with it. Okay. But it was just a lot. And then to hear him have this particular moment where he was recognizing that all of his body language, all of his gestures were coming from the fact that he was being raised by his mother and his grandmother. And so in being raised by these two people, he's saying, he even says out loud, and when I tell you he's screaming, He's red. He's a light-skinned little boy, red, beat in the face. And he says, you know, people think I'm gay because of how I'm being raised and blah, blah. My dad just needs to be around. And I was thinking to myself, I have never in my life heard such context. I've never heard in my life such a defining moment. And an 11-year-old gave me that moment. Not an adult, not a professor, not a doctor or PhD. An 11-year-old gave me that moment because that was an honest moment for him. I don't know where he is now. I question whether or not this is where sometimes we say, and we hear little boys, and once again, I'm not clumping everyone into a box. I will tell you that I do not believe everyone who's gay is born gay, but that's not our topic tonight. I don't believe it. I don't believe studies prove that. I do believe there are some people who know. And just like Jackie Hill Perry said, she had the desire at 4 and 5, and she felt that way. But in this little boy, he was 11. And the reason he was doing all of these mannerisms and feeling the way that he was feeling is he said it out of his own mouth. How many of you know we have to hear it from someone who's honest and doesn't have a motive? And sometimes the reason I know that they won't equate fatherless, gender identity, gender confusion, and the LGBTQIA community all in one moment is because people have a motive. This young man had no motive. He was trying to figure out how to get his dad into his life. And I'm sure at that point, if he was gay, he'd be fine with it. And I'm sure the rest of the world would be. But the other part about this is he recognized at 11 that he needed his dad because his behavior was attracting attention from people calling him gay and even from gay people thinking that he was gay. How many of you know that can create some things? How many of you know that? Because I know that. I know that that can create a scenario where people will say, oh, he's always been gay. Or a grown man will take this little boy and molest him and then create a scenario where he's upset and he's confused because people say, well, you've always been effeminate. And I have to remember this story. It has fueled and defined how I see homosexuality in the lives around me and how I experience it. 11-year-old. Very much so. And I have friends who are gay. We have parties. And if you can't come to our house and people can't ask you questions about your status, your HIV status, your sexuality, and have real conversations, then you can't come to our dinner parties. Like, that's how we roll over here. Everybody should be able to ask all the questions they want to ask, not just of them, but just relationships and life and all of that.
Safe zone.
It's a safe zone, as my husband said. It's when we get together, it's a safe zone. And that's how we view it. We have friends who are gay. 2 just got married in Milan, right? So I'm not here to bash the community in that way. But what I am here to say is fatherlessness does impact gender identity, gender confusion, and it even pushes some to think that they were born that way. Because when you grow up without a father, there's studies that I'm going to talk about here in a moment. Joe says, our children need fathers to know their true identity in Christ. True identity in Christ is where this all stems from. And I'm going to get into some scripture here in just a moment, but I wanted to lay this kind of foundation. Kenneth says, and there is my prominent who's who friend of most influential Black community members in Atlanta, Georgia. Y'all better recognize Kenneth Stop and Detroit while you playing. While you playing, I got 2 on lock, and I'm gonna get Dallas next year. Weston said, "That's a really powerful and telling moment." It is, and that's why I shared it, because I don't get to share that story often. I don't typically share it often because people will try to come after you for that story. It's my experience. It's what happened in my session, in my classroom, and I can tell you, you'll never be able to take that story from me, because it gave me the perspective that I needed to understand fatherlessness and gender identity and all of this stuff that we're dealing with. And this was over 8-9 years ago. Kenneth also says, or could he be gay because he's searching for identity he never received from his father, the only place he can get it? Once again, that's why I said, even if his father was around, we don't know that that meant that he wasn't going to be gay. Doesn't mean that. However, his mannerisms, his effeminate behavior, he was very clear as to where it came from. He was very clear. But I also, and once again, Kenneth, let me go back to anytime a girl with a little hip and a little booty walked in that room, he was like, I will never forget watching him look back at a girl's butt. And I was confused because I had already labeled him. Hi, my name is Dr. Torri J, and I'm judgmental. My husband and I just had this talk. I've had this talk in my Bible school class. I have to work on that. But I had judged him and I had made him gay. Not to say that I had an issue with it, but I already labeled the little boy. He was effeminate, he's gay. That's what many of us do in society. Little kids, little boys. And we never equate the fatherless aspect because you know what? The world doesn't let us do that. The world is automatically like, see, he was born that way. So when we're looking at Jackie Hill Perry, one of the things she talks about is being 4 and 5 and having a desire to be a boy. Having a desire. So how do you walk out of that? How do you look at this whole thing? So let's define what gender identity and all of this stuff is. I'm actually going to copy and paste this into the comment because I want to do more of that where it can actually stay there. So I'm going to put that in there. Hopefully you guys will see it in a minute. But it says self-image is conceptually similar to gender identity since this term also concerns how a person perceives oneself. Self-image is, however, much broader than gender identity. It could be stated that gender identity is a part of our self-image. And how many of you have read and discovered through the process of knowing more about fatherlessness that fatherless children tend to have an issue with their self-identity and their self-image. They tend to struggle and not understand it when their father's not present. When I look at fatherlessness from not only a natural perspective that I just gave you, let's go to the spiritual part where Joe talked about fatherlessness. And he talked about our identities, true identities in Christ. When we look at Genesis 1:1, we literally see the word where it says that God, he made them in his image. He created them in his image, male and female, he created them, right? So when we're talking about gender identity and gender confusion, we're saying that how God made us is wrong. Gender and sex, that's wrong. Like God did it, he did it wrong. I wouldn't even get into, I'm not even getting into the homosexuality aspect of this. I'm just not. But how can you say that God made you in the wrong body and the wrong person if you're not dealing with some confusion and some misunderstandings about something that started very early? So if God created me this way, are you saying that God made a mistake? The answer is yes. That's what people are saying. And so the idea that you have the ability to change God's will can very much be rooted in the idea of sin. And sin is simply missing the mark. It can be the fact that any confusion about identity is rooted in sin. And gender and sex is not fluid. I know you guys want that to be the thing. And I know this is not going to be a popular topic, especially if the wrong people get on this page. But I'm not here to sugarcoat this. I'm here to express to you how God created male and female. Let's go here. My husband and I have this conversation. Social media has the conversation. If gender is so fluid, why will one person typically change from a man to a woman and then they date someone who changed from a woman to a male and then they're together? That makes it interesting. And when you dig into their past, I have noticed from research that I've looked up, 8 out of 10 had a father wound or a fatherless and absent father issue. So if you can acknowledge the fact that those two things, whether the father was present and disengaged, and so he created a father wound, and so now your children have an issue with gender identity, or father was absent, and so now there's an issue. This ain't gonna be a popular conversation, I'm gonna tell you that right now. But I'm speaking spiritually, and I'm speaking from just research that's done from a psychological perspective, breaking this thing down. And there's lots of research. So let me go through some of the studies that I researched, and I will put some of them on the page just for you guys to understand it, because it's very challenging, even when you're talking about this conversation of males competing with girls that Ed is referring to, because someone wants to identify that way. his daughter could lose scholarships because when you're in public schools, they have to go with the tide. They have to go with what society says. So there's a lot of research out there, and a lot of the research can be mixed up. It can be confused, and I mean that. There's some research that says there's no difference between boys and girls in preschool who are raised in a two-parent home, um, a single-parent home where the father is out and not around, and a single parent home where the father is in and out. They're saying there's no difference between preschoolers in all three of those homes. And I'm trying to figure out, how is that the case when I've experienced preschoolers looking for their fathers in preschool because they recognize that three children or the other children were being picked up. So I'm not saying that it may define their gender identity, but it's given them some identity of some sort. Because I know one little girl was 3 years old walking up to the different men at the preschool, got a call from her mother and was like, do you think she knows? She was walking up to him going, dad, 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 dad. So she was becoming very aware of things early on at 3. I'm happy to know that I was able to reunite her with her father, but that was not an easy thing to do either, because mom had a lot of stuff in the way. Let's look at these studies before I get into a whole different story. So father absent boys will have a feminine gender identity due to an indication or an identification, an identification with the mother during childhood, and a masculine behavior as a reaction against this socially inappropriate feminine identity. Literally, we are in a time where the world is saying protest masculinity. We're in a time where society says things like the Me Too movement, and you want to diffuse all toxic masculinity. But when you ask people to define toxic masculinity, it seems to be anything male. I remember when the Gillette commercial came out, and you guys were in an uproar. Y'all were like, protest Gillette. Like, was it Gillette that did that? Yeah. No, they did a commercial, and it was intense. And it was like basically all the boys were angry and vicious, but the ones who were, mom was hugging the one little boy and coddling him, and it was really focusing on this overly effeminate aspect of masculinity. Like, you can't be fully masculine in this day and age. And so when we're looking at particular studies that I'm going to reference here tonight, and I need to reference them and probably give you the breakdown, because some of you are going to be like, well, what's that? Who's that? And I want to be able to tell you who it is.
You have a comment you may want to address, probably. Gordon Brower.
I don't see it on here.
Are you saying that all the fatherlessness is the fault of fathers? I'm just wanting to make sure I'm
absolutely
correct.
Nope, I didn't say. Well, we never even tackled that, Gordon. Like, we're not even having that conversation tonight. Our page is very clear on how fathers move and why they're in and out of their children's lives. We're talking specifically about fatherlessness and gender identity and gender confusion. I am very aware, based on all the reunifications that I've done, that fathers are absent for various reasons. Some can be because they made a bad decision at a young age. Some could be they were forced out. A lot of men in this day and age, I know about parental alienation. You've got to go through our wall and through our posts to know who we are. But no, I do not believe that fathers are in. I don't believe that fathers are, and I get where you're going, and I'm going to be very clear. Fathers being absent is the reason that we're having societal problems and issues. How they became absent, that's a whole different story. But you've got to understand that your children don't know you're on the other side fighting for them. Your children don't know that you're on the other side trying to get to them. Your children are being told a different story. Your children are being used as pawns and puppets. I have a client right now, the mother literally takes the children to the drop-off and pickup spot on the week he's not supposed to be there. And then tell the children, see, he didn't show up. See, he didn't come. And before somebody chimes in and says, oh, how do you know? Well, I'm videoed in a lot of the times, and I know what the order says. And mom is really trying to utilize this order to create parental alienation in the children. And I saw a video that the little girl posted, and it was on TikTok, and it was like a spoon, and it was like, well, my father provided, and it was nothing. And then nothing was on this spoon. Love, none of that. Care, it was none of that. And that was hard, and I'm sure that was hard for him to watch. But I know those stories and those journeys. Baby, you see any? I don't see for some reason.
Jamal is asking why.
Why? But why what?
Exactly. I'm asking him to explain.
Okay. Yeah. For some reason, my notes are not my thing isn't coming up. No. But I have to let you know that when we're looking at, and I want to stay on this particular topic because people want to, you guys want to delve into, well, it wasn't by choice, and it wasn't my decision, and it wasn't. Your children don't know that. And a lot of times, even once they're of age, they don't know that because they refuse to allow you to reach out. They refuse to allow you to tell your side of the story. They refuse to allow any of that. Okay. They're all coming. Oh my God. So like, hold on. They're all coming in now. Like I'm getting, okay. All right. Hold on. Man. Okay. So Kenneth Rose, he says, absolutely confuses gender identity to not have your father around. Identity crisis, identity not found from our fathers. Yeah, our identities are from our fathers. Hey, Becca, I want to know this question. I want to know this. Let's have this honest question. We're going to have a moment. For those of you who grew up fatherless, and I'm not talking to my parental alienation people if you did not grow up fatherless. For those of you who grew up fatherless, did you ever have a gender identity problem or issue or confusion? You ever thought you were fluid? You ever been involved in a homosexual relationship? If that is you, put a 1 in the box. This is a safe place, as my husband and I discussed. We will always create safe places. And then if that wasn't you, if you grew up fatherless and you've never had that, it's never been a thing for you, put a 2 in the box. If you grew up fatherless and you had that fluid, I think I'm a boy or a girl, like Jackie Hill Perry, gender identity questions, gender identity confusion, homosexuality, lesbianism, any of the LGBT, QIA community, any of that. Have you ever had that? Put a 1 in the box. If you haven't, put a 2 in the box. Thank you. I appreciate that, Randall. While I'm waiting. Are you saying, okay, that all father? Yep, I see it. One of the first people to have gender reassignments state that they regret what they did. Yeah, I've seen those videos. I can't remember her name, but she said that she had a psychological issue. And Paul, I'm going to tell you once again, I can't clump everybody into a box, but I know, and I've seen those testimonies, and I've seen those conversations, and I've had, I've watched those videos where people have said it was much bigger than that. And that's what Jackie Hill Perry says also. This is much bigger than her being a lesbian. This is much bigger than that. She talked about pride and pornography and all of the other things. She wasn't even going to minimize the other sins to make her lesbianism bigger than pride. She just didn't do that. And so you have to get to a place where you can be honest about how all of this is impacting you. If you are having gender identity issues, you definitely got some pride in there. You've definitely got a spirit of rebellion going on the inside of you. You've definitely got pornography and some other stuff that's happening within you.
Didn't you tell me one time we were talking about something that the actual surgeon who did the first surgery?
That's what they're talking about.
Oh,
yeah. Okay. Yeah, the person who did the first surgery and who created transgender surgery, he is like regretting that conversation. He hates that idea that he even got to that point. And this is where society has pushed everything and everyone. And when those topics are and those conversations are being had, that tends to go under the radar. So Jamal Watkins is asking, but why? And then Varg said, explain. Gotcha. Thanks for clearing that up. Yeah, Gordon, you're good. Toxic feminism. Why is feminism toxic? Why is there toxic feminism? Okay. So let me go here. So Nydia said 1. Becca said 2. Jamal has a 2. She has a 2. I will tell you that I have a one. I don't remember when it was, maybe 10 or 11. Never homosexual relationship, but these thoughts began to come. And I want to say they started to come because pornography had entered into my life around that time. And so that's how stuff gets stirred up. And we have to be honest about that. And that's Healing Tuesday. I'm gonna be honest about my journey through this process. But I'm a one on there too, because we have to look at how it might have trickled in just for a moment. It might not be a full on relationship, but was it a thought? Was it a moment in time? Um, Girls tend to try to figure things out at a certain age, and boys do too, but especially girls. And then you're playing on the basketball team. I ain't go that way. It was not a thing, but I definitely saw it, and it was something that tried to infiltrate my life, but it's never been a real thing in my life. And my husband, I think we've talked about this. Yeah, I think we've talked about this. Um, and I just want to be clear on that. So, why is there toxic feminism? I think there are many reasons why there's toxic feminism. I think that's a topic for another day, Jamal, and I will touch on it to a certain degree for you today. Society today is so feminist focused that men are looked at less than or not needed. Look at how biased family courts are. Absolutely. So toxic feminism will put us in a situation where it's almost, and I hate to say it, my husband has this, we have this conversation. I don't hate to say it, but I'm going to be cautious in how I say this on here. We have to be honest how we have been bullied into certain tolerance, or they don't even want to be tolerated anymore. It's an acceptance, right? And so one of the things, you have women who have found their way through the suffrage movement, and they found their way through that movement, and then the oppressed then become the oppressor. And this is just my take. So when you have the oppressed becoming the oppressor, they then want everything their way. Happens in feminism. So when men come forth and have a conversation, and men want to, talk about fathers' rights, or the men's movement, you've seen feminism come forth and really like come for them. How dare you talk about, you guys are female haters. And I've like my mentor, Dr. Warren Farrell, he took a lot of that. And I've seen other men who've had to take on the brunt of feminism because they were standing up for men. And that's, I think, the rise of toxic feminism really starts to raise its head from the suffrage movement. Then it raises its head from single parent households. And then if you say that children don't have a father and they need their father, then what you're saying is then moms aren't good moms. And so then it creates this whole dynamic where you can't even say out of your mouth, oh, I love my father. Why do you think so many fatherless children are quiet about it? Or they take their mom's side? Because the moment you say, I love my father, or I needed my father, it's this moment where moms feel like they weren't the best they could be, or they're not appreciated, or whatever that is. And it's not one cancels the other. We need both. And we need feminism. And I know toxic feminism, if you go back, Jamal, you can see where we talked about toxic mothers. We had 2 episodes on that one because that conversation was so intense for people. They just kept talking and kept talking. And I had to do 2 sessions on toxic mothers. It comes from this idea that moms are superheroes and they're doing it by themselves, and when they're really not, and child support's being paid, and so they're doing it with the help of the father or the help of the government without being honest about that. And I think that's a whole different gambit, but I hope I touched on some of the question that you have. I think we've created it in our society. I think we've created it from the fact that women felt oppressed, and to some degree still feel oppressed. And so when you try to say something contrary to women, especially in the Me Too movement, which I am not per se an ally of, because I think you need to tell the truth. Not think, you need to tell the truth. Like if you're telling the truth about someone, fine. But if you're making reference to someone saying that they sexually assaulted you, which is a term for rape as far as I'm concerned, but we broaden that into he brushed up against you. If someone has sexually assaulted you, that needs to be reported. But if you are just having unwanted advances and you're taking that, and it happened one time and you're taking that too far. I can't get behind that level of toxic feminism. I can get behind women who've been molested and raped, and they've had those moments, because I too have gone through that journey. I too have experienced that. And as a woman, I know what that looks like. And I'm not here to silence anyone, but I also can tell you that so many of these Me Too movement things are questionable at this stage. And it keeps people who have actually gone through these challenges from having a real conversation and really telling their truth. And so that's where I go with that. So let's look at what Nydia said. So Nydia said, I always knew I loved men, but I was curious and wondered if I was a lesbian, but not because I was fatherless. I don't think so anyway. Yeah. We don't know the answer to that, right? Because we were so young. We don't know. Is there any more questions? Because it's paused again. Mm-hmm. Yep. See, I don't know what this is trying to do tonight, because I know this conversation is one of those where people want to hear. And so let's go here. Let's go here really quickly. One of the things I need to share with you from a spiritual perspective, where did I write this? Oh, I know where I wrote it. Okay. So if we look at this, fatherlessness creates a few dominating sexual curses. Did you guys know that? So fatherlessness is automatically going to put you in a position as a boy where you're an effeminate male. That's fatherless. No man in sight, right? You can't mimic it. You don't have it around, like the young man I talked about early on. And fatherlessness is going to create masculine women automatically. It's part of the curse. It's part of the journey, because our parents and our mothers teach us how to be strong as women. They teach us how to be strong, and they give us this masculine energy, because guess what? They're mother and father, which they're not. You can't be. But they add a masculine energy to our upbringing and our development that causes some gender role confusion even within us. There are times when, I have to pull back even in my marriage, because I recognize that I'm being the dominant person. Not to say that I can't be myself, but what I'm saying is there's a moment where I have to submit to who he is as well. And too many of us are not able to do that. We will bulldoze over a brother in a heartbeat. And I mean brother in white or black sense, or Asian, or whatever you are. We will bulldoze over you. We do not have any sympathy for you. Get it done and quit whining. Quit your belly aching, as my husband would say. And we carry that masculine energy in a way that's not conducive for a relationship. One, and a healthy one at that, which creates this toxic feminism that we were just talking about. Hold on, I want to read something here. There was a study, and it was done in Australia, and it concluded that father absence boys shows more of a feminine or less masculine gender identity and report lower self-esteem than father present boys. And even when you looked at the girls, the study also showed that girls became more androgynous and masculine in their relationships because their father was absent. How many of you know that that is dangerous? Because what we do then is, as masculine women, we tend to attract effeminate men. And it's still a role reversal in that way. It's still a gender identity and gender confusion in the role aspect. Babe, what's the question? Because I can't see them. I don't know why it's doing this.
A statement from Gordon.
Uh-huh.
He says, an interesting dynamic in my family. Mm-hmm. My mother was sick, and at an early age, my sister really had no female at home for her to model after. As a result, my father was both dad and mom. My sister and I are estranged from one another because of it. She thought it was favored. She thought I was favored over my dad.
So she thought your dad played the favoritism role. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, she had an issue with that. See, once again, it goes into boys have more of an issue, especially in a single parent home, than the two parent home. So that moment is reversed. I want to know, Gordon, is your sister very masculine in her approach to life and how she maneuvers? Because one of the studies even said that boys will think effeminate or think in a feminine way, but then project masculinity because they grew up with this development from their mother, but then society or a male figure or mentor then came in and gave them the masculine machismo side of it, right? And that is part of the challenge. What's the other question?
Jarius is on. You said hi.
Okay. Hey, Jarius.
Shamilak said he loves his father, comes from hurt. Lydia said, as a victim advocate, I totally get where you are coming from. It's horrible when some women take advantage of these movements for their own agendas, and the real victims are afraid to come forward.
Yeah, that happens often. I can tell you out of the times that I have dealt with sexual assault, I've reported it one time. And the one time I reported it, I was moving to London, England. It happened the day before I was moving. And I went to the police station and shared what had happened to me. And the police officer said, if you want to pursue this, you can't move. I got a flight. I'm registered for school. You're creating a whole fiasco for me. So it was like, never mind, child. Never mind. And I had to go to Bible school carrying that weight. Now they're all coming in. I don't know what this is doing tonight. But I had to go to Bible school and carry all of that weight in the Bible school. So I know, Jesus, these are a lot. There's a lot on here.
You got a lot going on.
I do. Like, whoa.
Let me just go ahead. I'm sorry. Carry a lot to Bible school.
Yeah, and I had to carry that to Bible school with me. And I was late for school because I was trying to figure out, what do I do? How do I maneuver? And the truth of the matter is I remember seeing that, like, even when I'm online, I have to see this person pursue their musical career and do very well in life. And I'm looking at them like, you a rapist, dude. Like, you a straight rapist. And the only reason you got away with it is because I had to go to Bible school, because I would have pursued that. But you're put in a position where you're put in a position where you just don't know how to move forward with it. And I can share with you that at 12 years old, I was molested by a male babysitter. And that added a lot of questions, and it changed the dynamic of my household tremendously. Like, even it changed the relationship with my mother, because I witnessed some things that made me question her ability to protect me. It made me, and it opened the door to, I think, several things, many things. It made me form walls. But I will tell you, my mother was dope. She took me straight to therapy and straight to counseling. So I think that's part of the healer in me in the first place. She didn't say no. She didn't, act like it didn't happen. It was tough, but it was something that we went through in my household. So imagine little boys going through that. Imagine little boys being raped and molested, not only by women, but also men, and females being touched and molested by other women. It causes another level of confusion when you don't have your father there to protect you or to watch over you or to comfort you or to keep those things from you. And I know some people are going to say, but what if it's your daddy who did it, or blah, blah, blah. I get it. Once again, I can't clump everybody into this box, but I need to interject the conversation of fatherlessness and the understanding that it is a part of gender identity and gender confusion. It's a part of that whole conversation, but we don't want to have it, because if we have that conversation, if we're going to have this conversation, then we're put in a position where we have to say some of these people are gay, homosexual, transgender. What was the one I heard today? Janelle Monáe, pansexual. It's just based on the person. We have to admit that some of this is entered in because fathers have not been present or been able to be present. So let me see some of these questions that did come through.
So you asked Gordon if his sister's masculine. He says she's pretty strong-headed.
Yeah.
Strong.
She's strong. Yeah, because she has that masculine side that your father brought to the table. And I'm sorry to hear, that's the alienation that's happening in your relationship. I pray that does turn around, because I have similar things that happened in my journey even with my brother and I. I see Paul says porn is terrible. Yeah, Paul, but when you're growing up and Guess what? Your mother leaves one in the DVD player and you see it, and then it's like, huh, what's that? So then you start to have all these questions and all these things that happen to you way early. Um, let me see. Teenage girls are the fastest growing group turning to porn regularly. It's about 40%. Not only that, can we go to the Christian aspect? There's no difference between how Christians, especially women, this is not a male issue either anymore. So often we made porn a male thing. Porn is not a male issue. Women and men, Christian, non-Christian alike, are experiencing porn and getting into porn as if it's not a thing. And if you're watching porn, been there, done that. Porn is very quick and very easy to go from a heterosexual situation to two women in a heartbeat. So imagine being a 12-year-old and you see the next scene or the next moment is two women having sex. You think that doesn't bring confusion to a child's mind? It absolutely does. So doors are opening because fatherlessness is prevalent. Now, some of you can say, well, your dad couldn't keep that from happening. You don't know that either. You think you know that, but you don't know that. Let me see. I see Margot's like clapping. Yes. Jamal said, ooh, that's good. I like that, Jamal.
I have a question for Jamal.
Nydia says, okay, Nydia, this is a good one. I get where you're coming from. My mom used to always push me to do all the boy chores around the house and call me her little Samson when I moved furniture from one side of the room to another. Come on. Our mothers make us strong because their goal is to help us understand how life is going to work and society is going to work. And then they make the boys a little weaker and a little more effeminate. And boys only have a mother to look to most times because her crazy boyfriends that she's bringing in the house aren't role models. My mother didn't bring not a nan good role model in that house for my brother. What she did do was put him in Big Brother, Big Sister, and he's had the same Big Brother now for 30 years. Like he was just at the memorial. So that was the thing that she did, where he did get to see a male that way. But boyfriend wise, there was nobody. And imagine for mothers who can't put their kids in Big Brother, Big Sister and have that opportunity, then you're dealing with more broken people, more broken men. Lydia said, we can be extremely unforgiving. Absolutely. There are, here we go. I see it, Jamal. There are women in the church and society who fail at submission in their relationships and family. Absolutely, because we were told that if you show that, then you're weak. I don't share stuff about my marriage with my mother nor my best friend. I do not. My best friend, I used to call her won't hold a man's hand, and the word was never man. She is not the type who holds a man through a situation in that regard. Not giving them pity and sympathy. Her line is from major pain. Her sympathy is right between, yeah. That's where she is. And that was the truth about our relationship. I was super sensitive. And I think I told you guys this, but she was really masculine. And so what my friend provided for me, she toughened me up. She from Highland Park, Detroit. She toughened me up, but I still kept the feminine side and I softened her up. And that was the benefit of our relationship. I see Gordon is saying, Gordon's saying she's pretty strong-headed. Yeah, that right there, that's going to be the issue. And that's what you got to pray. And strong-headed is just pride. It's a level of sin. That's what it is. Kudos to strong women. Absolutely. However, thumbs down to women who fail to stay in their lane. Message, Jamal. Look, I know some women are going to be like, well, what's that lane? Go back 2-3 videos ago. We talked about the different roles because sometimes you guys can make gender roles specifically about cooking, cleaning, pregnancy, barefoot in the kitchen. And my husband and I don't maneuver like that. And we talked about that in one of the other Healing Tuesdays where it's like, he just washed clothes yesterday and folded them all, okay? It's about how you flow in your household and what works best for you. But I stay in my lane. I like to come home and be a woman and be feminine. And I like him to come home and be strong and dominant. He didn't see that look, y'all. He was playing with something.
I felt it.
I like that part. I like masculinity in my household. And because let's be honest, ladies, when we're the one carrying the masculine energy, and this is kind of off topic a little bit, but we're here. When we're carrying it, it's a heavy weight to carry. And it's not something that we want to carry. We don't like to carry it. And when we're honest, that's why now we're having conversations about the superwoman syndrome is an issue. I see you, Nydia said, uh-oh, y'all stop that. we're carrying too much, and so we tried to be superwoman, we tried to be mother and father, we tried to be husband and wife, we tried to be all these different things, and it hasn't worked in our favor. And so we need to stay in our lane. And whatever lane that is, you pick it and you drive in that lane in that relationship. You two carve out what that looks like for you. That's what you do. But when we're looking at fatherlessness and gender identity and gender confusion, we have to make sure, hey, Apostle Blackwell, we have to make sure that we're honest about how this impacts our day to day. Because I'm telling you, fatherlessness opens up sexual curses. And two that I'm specific on tonight is the effeminate aspect of men and the masculine aspect of women. It has opened that door, and then when people get a certain age, they question, am I fluid? Am I gay? Am I straight? Am I pansexual? Am I asexual? What sexual am I? Because so many doors have been opened. I remember being in Charlotte with my friend, and her friend said she was homo flexible. And I was like, okay, that's a new term for me. Because what her position was is she is a masculine female, but she likes an effeminate male. And if he is effeminate enough, she's all about it, which is interesting because if you get an effeminate male, it's still like dating a female. So she was homo flexible. That's why you got to be careful. Got to be super duper careful. Okay, let's see. Nydia said, my mom to this day still goes to me before she goes to her significant other for stuff. Fatherlessness and emotional incest. That's a good one. I think you brought this up or hinted to this before, Nydia, but that's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, we're gonna take note on that one. Jamal says, I try to empower both my son and my daughter. And you have to empower them differently, Jamal. There's an expectation of how you empower them. And when we're looking at the fatherlessness and gender identity and gender confusion concerning this, we have to step in this with confidence and with boldness and know what we're talking about when we're dealing with it. Because what will happen is you're going to get someone who's homosexual, who's going to tell you don't know what you're talking about, and they're going to try to cancel out every experience that you've had. And once again, that's why I shared the story that I shared in the beginning about the 11-year-old, because children are authentic, they're genuine, they tell you how they feel, and they don't play around with that. So when you have that moment like I had, you can't take that away from me. You can't take it away from me. Apostle Blackwell said, yes, it does. So let's see. The most hurting thing is when your children have their father removed from their lives, and then their mother puts up an emotional, social, and legal roadblocks and then complains to why can't the father communicate with their kids? Oh, yeah. Well, Idris, I'm going to tell you, we talked about this a little bit. It's not the topic tonight. This is typically on Father's Rights Thursday, where we get into those conversations about dealing with parental alienation and how mothers deal with all of these things and hurting children. Children are smarter than we give them credit. But I know when you're dealing with parental alienation, they tend to get sucked into the psychological warfare of it all. And it becomes a real challenge on how you can have a relationship with your children. I talked about earlier before I think you jumped on here. I have a dad who the mother's literally coming and going to the destination, the drop off spot and the pickup spot on the week that's not the father's week, and telling the children, see, he don't care about you. So I get the psychological warfare that's taking place. And I get how that's hurting. I always share that fatherless children and, okay, see you later, Instagram. They cut off exactly at an hour. Yeah, they do. They don't let you stick around. How fatherless children and their absent fathers are having the same painful experience, and they're living a very difficult and painful existence because of their journey that they're dealing with together. Ooh, Jamal said, I wonder why don't the church address this? Jamal, I've had that same question. Oh, see, Apostle Blackwell, who's a pastor friend of mine, who this is who my husband has been. I guess you know the one person who said you were imitating or impersonating a pastor, or you're a pastor.
Oh yeah, that's
this is
right.
Apostle Blackwell. She's the one who wrote the review, and yeah. But anyway, she says there's churches that do, but those churches are churches that is avoided. Oh yeah, that most people don't want to attend. Those are the churches that people they have smaller congregations, because I know Apostle Blackwell will deal with that conversation. Um, okay, he says Sonia C. Blackwell, that's good. Yeah, those are the churches that people don't want to go to because they're speaking from a place of holiness. They're speaking from a place of let's get into the truth of what's really happening. Nydia says children are smart. We need to stop treating them like they're not. Absolutely. My 11-year-old that day, he changed my life. And these kids are constantly changing my life. We had a conversation recently where the preteen girls were like, hey, we just found out the dads were necessary to create a child. So how did we know dads were necessary for our development? And I was like, ooh, that's a thought. Because I never, like, I'm asking them questions about their father and they're looking at me like, didn't know I needed him. My mother's good. So I have to bring in a different element to this group of girls because they're a little late in learning about the birds and the bees. It's just what it is. So let's look at this one more time, and I want to read a few more of these studies that I talked to you guys about. Empirical research on the effect of father absence on gender role behavior has produced inconclusive and contradictory results. I want to share that because when I looked at, there were 67 different studies. And as I was breaking down the summaries and looking at them, I can tell you some of them were like they were inconclusive. And these were studies from all over the world. Some were inconclusive. Some said that boys were better off with their moms, and some says the girls were better off with their dad. It was just like, okay, who's done an actual study? Maybe that's the next thing that I need to do, and to ask that question. And ask all the right questions, because maybe we're not asking the right questions about fatherlessness. Too often, I don't think we're asking the right questions. The other thing that I want to put is early studies suggest that boys from single mother families were less masculine than boys from two-parent homes. I think I read that one. I think I read that one too. I need for you, there are other questions under Jamal? Okay, so we're good. I need for you guys to understand that this conversation needs to be continuously had. Maybe this isn't the place where you found healing tonight, but maybe it's a place where you got information and enough information to help you understand why society is falling apart the way that it is. The truth of the matter is we don't get the choice to choose our sex. God chose that from the beginning. And you can't change God's will based on the idea that you want to. That is all rooted in the same sin of pornography and pride and all of the other things that we talked about tonight. I'm going to post some videos from Jackie Hill Perry. I'm going to suggest her book to you. It is something I'm going to be delving into for the rest of this month on Healing Tuesday, because I want us to have better relationships. I want us to be in a position where we acknowledge how fatherlessness is impacting how we view ourselves and our self-image and even our sexual image. Because some of us, because of the challenges that we've had from fatherlessness and our gender identity and gender confusion, there's a type of male that we attract or a type of female that we attract. And in attracting those people, it is not God's best and it's not what God promised us. And so then, therefore, we're operating with someone who may allow us to, who may allow us to have an experience with a female, although we're female, because the male is effeminate, right? That's a questionable thing to me. Why are women attracted to men who are very effeminate, very passive, who lack masculinity? I married an alpha male, but I also see some of his feminine traits from his single parent upbringing. Not that they're negative. They're not. I don't experience them that way.
I mean, back you with manicure right now.
Yeah, he needs his toes and his nails done. And he would not come on the Facebook Live for prayer on Monday because he said his hair wasn't done. Can you believe? See, that's
whoa.
They heard you. They heard you on Monday. I don't know if that's an effeminate trait or a grooming issue. I'm not really sure. I appreciate his hair being done and his nails being done, but he's not getting no manicure, y'all, right now. He's just not. That's not where this is. Anyway, he's see, comedy. He's gonna be a comedian. Jamal, thank you for coming on and being a part of this. Becca said, I'm masculine in a sense that I take charge and struggle to let my husband lead. That's the masculine that we're talking about, Becca. That's the one. Nydia said, y'all too funny. Always got to have a little laughter in here, Nydia, when this thing is tough and it's a real conversation, right? Probably because he like Prince. Oh, this your dude.
Oh, Jamal.
Jamal, we just had this conversation yesterday. Bruh. I don't like Prince like that, and I don't believe most people like Prince like that because I think people only know about 5 Prince songs and act like they're a Prince fan for a lifetime. But that's another conversation. We had that yesterday. Like, people don't like Prince like that. This dude knows all of Prince's catalog. It's like, how do you know these songs? And they're not good songs.
Wait a minute.
But anyway, we're going to move on. So, Becca, let's deal with this right now because I still got it up on the screen. This is the part, Jamal, that you were talking about tonight, right? This is the part that you were asking, like, why aren't we talking about this at church? Why is it that women are masculine, they struggle, they have this tug of war? This is the thing. When you grow up fatherless, this control piece, this part, and Becca has shared this. She's one of my regular people. I can't put that on the screen. She's one of my regular people. She has this issue of letting go and letting her husband lead. And her husband is such a gracious man. He's on here sometimes. Dwayne's on here too sometimes. And he will be the kind of person who he's giving her the grace and he's helping her heal throughout her journey. And that's what marriage is. So I think they have an awesome dynamic to get them through this struggle and through this journey. But her even saying she's masculine in the sense that she takes charge and struggles to let her husband lead. You're going to have to learn how to do that in a way that makes you comfortable. And I say bit by bit, little by little, Becca, because I know you're tired. I said it earlier. We can't carry the weight that they carry. We carry it. But if we tell you we're not tired, we're lying to you. We're lying. Our shoulders aren't as broad. Most of ours. They're not as broad. They can't carry the same level of weight. And that's a spiritual weight to carry. It's a spiritual weight. You become tired. You start looking old and run down. You start snapping and you have depression issues because you're outside of your role. That's why you look within certain communities and there's a lot of domestic violence that they don't tell you about. There's a lot of depression. There's lots of suicide. And they will make those things about, oh, society's not accepting. No, it's because this internal thing is telling you that it's off. I know that based on friendships that I have. I know that. So I want Jamal, I thank you for tuning in and having this conversation with us and really gleaning some stuff. I am grateful that Nydia and Becca and all of this are on here. I even see Nydia said, facts. I is tired. I'm in charge at work already too much, and I don't want to be in charge at home too. That's the message. Even Becca just said, oh, I'm tired and I get mad at him for not leading. Yeah. But Becca, that's something, our coach, see, Tuesdays are my busiest day because I go from work. I didn't even get my nap today and I've been up since 4:30. This is crazy. AM. Couldn't sleep for some reason. Then couldn't pray either. Ugh, struggling. So I'm up. I go from 5 o'clock. Then I still had calls all the way up until like 6:15. We had to go to the store and grab something. By 7, we're on a marriage coaching call. From 7 to 8, I'm on a marriage coaching call. And from 8 to 9, I'm finishing up prepping for you guys and getting on here to have this conversation. And then it's 10 o'clock and I'm like, I'm exhausted. I sleep in on Wednesday. I don't get up at 7:30 or anything. My body won't even let it happen. As my husband said, please share. But I want you, Becca, to go from getting mad at him to, when it comes down to it, give him something. Give him something. And if he doesn't do it and he doesn't lead, yep, I see it on here. And he doesn't lead, this is what I want you to do. I want you to just let it fall. So give him something that you're comfortable with. It's a little bit at a time. But you've got to also recognize that you're the one who groomed him that way too. He probably, and I know he grew up without his father in a single parent home. So his mother did most of the grooming, and then you were just part of the journey. And so then you became the kind of woman, because you're masculine, you just took on those things. It's time for you guys to change those roles and have a clear talk about what he's going to start taking on and leading and how he's going to lead. And then you give one or two to him. And if he doesn't get it done, let the thing fall, let it drop. Maybe that's not electricity. Maybe that's the phone bill or the cable bill or whatever that is you want when it comes to the children, whatever that is. You then allow him, and then you don't step in. That's the part. That's the part that they taught us in our marriage coaching class. And a lot of women were like, because we used to just stepping in. I don't step in. I used to. I don't. My husband will call me and say, hey, can you take care of this? Or can you, hit the button for this? Sure. But I don't. No. Because this household is supposed to be the way that it's supposed to, how God wants it to be. And if we have to fight through that, not each other, which there's been some arguments now. Let's not get it twisted. Marriage ain't for no punks, as we say in this house. Okay. However, our goal in this household is for him to be the spiritual leader and the head of this household. So that when we have children, there is no confusion. And I can still be fierce and strong and all of that at the same time, so that my children can see what it's like to be a powerful force as a woman, but also be submissive when it comes time to come home to my husband. That's how that should work. Talk about confusing my poor husband. I get it, Becca, but I want you to give one or two things. Ike says, I work in family court in Fulton County, and there are some serious trauma-stricken individuals in this city. That's true. But Ike, you've got a great look. I love your family court. Out of most of them that I work around in this country, Judge Edwards ain't no punk. Judge Whitaker is so very clear about how she moves. Glanville, I think is his name. I like how he really gets into the case and digs into it enough where he knows who's full of it and who's not. And I can tell you, I've had some clients and I've watched some stuff. He laughing out loud. Oh, I know these judges, Ike. I know the judges. But I know there's some judges who are still in there who shouldn't be in there because they can't quite see through the stuff that's brought to their attention. But I know let's just go to Georgia, out of DeKalb County, out of Clayton County, who put you through every hoop they can possibly find so that daddies can't get a court date. Yes, and Brasher, no question about it. Yep, see, he put Whitaker on here. She's my judge. Oh, I like her. I have a case right now in her courtroom. Yes, Judge Whitaker is the one Kadada tried to take me in front of. Yeah, and then we had that moment where our client went in front of her and she knew our name from that situation and was really excited to be able to work with him through us. So yes. So, okay, Whitaker and Brashers, those are your judges. Those are some awesome judges because they see through all the mess, and I like them. But like I said, there's a couple. Every Tuesday night at 9:00, my husband was like, okay, we're going. Oh, that was Jamal.
This is good stuff.
Oh, praise God. Okay, Jamal. Yeah, I'm on here every Tuesday night. We're going to cut this short. And that's because I'm going to talk about this. We're going to continue and we're going to dig deeper. I told you earlier, we're just going to scratch the surface on this conversation. Fatherlessness and gender identity and gender confusion. We're going to go deeper next week. We're going to go deeper spiritually.
And I'm DJing.
You're not DJing. I want you guys to understand that God created us male and female. How you play that out in your lives, that could have a lot to do with generational curses, sexual curses, how how you were raised in your single parent household without your father, in this scenario that leaves you underdeveloped. It leaves you in a place of um, what do we call that? Arrested development, where you don't have the level of development that you need to walk into adult relationships. And Becca, I see you saying I'm gonna have to think about that. I get it. I get it. Okay, yep, I came up again, so it's working again. But yeah, so I want you to think about it, and I want you to give them two, 1 to 2, but two I think is a good one, a good number where you can start easing things off of your plate onto his plate. How do I know? I've had to do that in my own household, because we will just take the ball and keep it running. We keep it moving. We do all the budget and pay it and do it and take over and do this and do that and do. You can't do it all. You're tired. You said you were tired. Ike said, I'll be in court tomorrow in contempt court with Manning. Okay. He said, that's it. That's the only way it should be. It is. It is the only way it should be. So I want you guys to share this. I want you to come back next week. As I said, I'm going to dig deeper into this conversation. We're going to talk about fatherlessness and pornography and homosexuality and how that all plays out. We're going to go here. I know some people aren't going to like it. So, but we know who those people are going to be. If y'all see some trolls, let me know.
They're not.
Yeah, no. So if you see some trolls, hit me up in my inbox. I don't always see them. I'm busy, and so I'm Dr. Torri J. I'm here to have a real candid conversation with you on Healing Tuesday. And this month, we're going to talk about fatherlessness, gender identity, gender confusion, homosexuality, pansexuality, homoflexible. We're going to talk about how it's all impacted by fatherlessness. We have to be honest. We have to be honest how it's impacting us. I know it seems normal. I know it seems natural to people. But as I'm going to leave you with this. This was something Jackie Hill Perry said tonight that I thought, whoo! She said, feelings have no authority. They have no authority. And so if feelings have no authority and you feel like you a girl today, the only thing that has authority is the word of God. And I know some people question what that looks like. I don't. The Bible is my authority. It's the word of God for me. And I recognize that. And I hope I don't offend anybody. And if I do, I'm sorry. Wrong page for you. So I will see you guys on Thursday, where we will get into the conversation of help is on the way. Our Father's Rights Day is where we get into how we can help you from a father's rights perspective. I don't know what the topic is this Thursday yet. I will put that out probably tomorrow. But just know I'm here to help. I'm here to help you in every way possible. And oh yes, the Canada. See, my husband's chiming in. Canada has been canceled due to the coronavirus conversation. Too much going on. I want to make sure I actually impact that area when I do go. So I would have left today. So Canada is postponed until maybe July. Thank God it'll be warmer. Maybe that's a good idea. And then I will be at the Stellar Awards at the end of this month. I will leave for Johannesburg April 8th, and I will be gone until May 1st. When I get back, my husband will join me at some point. We haven't figured out which leg he's going to join me on. But I will be in 4 different countries working with fathers through their father's rights issue, helping heal individuals with I've Got Daddy issues, and speaking at a business conference in Lusaka, Zambia. But I'll be in Johannesburg, Lusaka, Zambia, Lagos, Nigeria, as well as Ghana, or Accra, Ghana. And I'm excited about setting up my business as well as my peer groups in Johannesburg and Lusaka. We're international now, y'all. Like, it's crazy, but it's a thing. It's like it's happening. And then May is all things fatherlessness all across this country. Particular events and dates will start coming out in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and you will then see what we're planning for May all over this country to help bring awareness, but also help support and provide just necessary services for those that need it, as well as some fun activities that will bring fundraising. We need funds. We can't do this. Like, y'all have no idea. I can't get on here and whine like some people who have organizations. I don't have the ability to do that. But just know donations are necessary. I'm going to advertise the Fatherlessness Awareness Ribbon because I still have a few. And then we have some t-shirts that some of you have said you wanted. Buy a t-shirt. That helps support the work and the mission that we do. All right. So I will talk to you guys next Tuesday. And for those who are fathers and you want to get on Fathers Rights Day, which the thing is called Help is on the Way at 1 p.m., I'm on there for 30 minutes. Let's talk. And I look forward to talking to you guys next week. All right. Bye.